right, welcome to On My Block Packers podcast. I am your host, Mike Wall. I'm going to be joining us shortly, but until then, you can find me at Mike Wall68 on Twitter and TikTok, Process to Perform on Instagram. The show is presented by BetOnline.ag. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your NBA playoff betting this season. Exciting games last night, too, by the way. Goodness. Get your analysis of every play, prop, and point at betonline.ag. You'll find the latest odds, bracket contests, team matchups, and game trends at BetOnline. Updated odds for everything from live games to conference championships right through the NBA Finals. So BetOnline is your NBA headquarters this season. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use our promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, to receive your bonus. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. There's some interesting stuff going on. So we know it's draft week. And it was weird, man. I was reading this draft stuff, and what happens is every year, we talked about it last year. They have all these new cognition tests, right? They had the Wonderlic, and then they had the AIQ, and now they have the S2 cognitive test, and they like to use it with quarterbacks. And an old name from Green Bay, or I guess he was with the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel back in the day when I was there, Bob McGinn, dropped some information that, and I didn't know this, but Bob was the guy who was leaking all the information. So all of these tests, you take these tests at the combine if you're a player, and you're kind of forced, just like every other thing. Like, you don't have to take it, but if you don't take it, you're a red flag, and people, they'll say bad things about you. But it's supposed to be anonymous. It's not supposed to be leaked to the media. But somehow, guys like Bob McGinn, who I had a hot and cold relationship with Bob. I have nothing bad to say about Bob, except for I think this is too bad that he's doing this, if this is in fact the case, if he's leaking this information. But Bob and other people are finding information online or from somewhere, some source on this S2 cognitive test. And they're now running C.J. Stroud's name through the mud. C.J. Stroud was going to be the top 1 or 2 pick in the draft. Maybe a lot of people have him going to the Texans at number 2. But he scored a low number on this test. And this is one of those tests, like the Wonderlic test was before it, like AIQ was before that. And let me tell you, I went through the AIQs thing ad nauseum. We had the guy in the building a lot. These tests are without context. It's absolutely absurd how teams are willing to. Here's AG. What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man. Talking about the S2 cognitive test here. So Bob McGinn, AG, remember that? Bob has been the one leaking all this information about Wonderlic's, AIQs, and now he got the S2 tests out there. And so he's one of the reasons that CJ Stroud is dropping in media boards, not on actual boards, but in the media, he's dropping because, some NFL executives who don't have the balls to put their names out there are saying, well, he scored low on this test, therefore he's definitely a bust. And
right.
I'm reading this article here that Stroud scored 18. It sounds like red alert. You can't take a guy like that. That's why I have Stroud as a bust. That's in conjunction with the fact, name one Ohio State quarterback that's ever done it in the league. This guy won't put his name in. He's an NFL executive that doesn't have the balls to put his name out here and put his name on his words.
Right.
This stuff is it just pisses me off that guys go through their whole careers, these young aspiring athletes trying to get to this point. They take a test that they probably don't even want to take. Maybe they're in a good or bad state.
Right.
Score is low enough where you go, okay, there's probably something else going on, but it gets run through the mud now because these things are leaked. It's just, I'm surprised. I saw this and my first thought was, how the hell Bob McGinn doing working for, some other company called Go Long now. And instead of the Journal Sentinel and dropping bad information to put these guys in the spotlight for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. I mean, it's something unfortunate for CJ. And, the Wonderlic was something when I got to the combine, I had just heard about it like 2 weeks prior to flying out to Indianapolis. And they said, oh, by the way, you got to take this test called the Wonderlic. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what?
Wonder what?
Yeah, wonder what? And then you got to take this other test that's from the Giants. That's going to be like 500 questions that they're going to make you take. You don't have to finish it. You get as far as you could go. I'm like, so, to hear this is just, again, just like, a reporter, comment, or AP person trying to basically get their name out there. That's one thing that pops in my head. It's like they trying to get that sensational, sexy headline with their name attached to it, not knowing in the process that they're potentially putting a little bump in the road for a potential great player. As we know, he's been proven through his years. I don't know if he's a senior, but between 4 years at Ohio State, doing his job, getting his team to the FBS.
Two-time Heisman finalist, right?
Yeah, exactly. Heisman finalist, everything. And then not a guy that does, and then on top of that is a good all-around leader in the locker room, for his team and for a good team. And so, and to have all this kind of just, like I mentioned, drug through the mud, it just shows where some of the bad human beings want to be and get their name out there. So hopefully, I say if I'm CJ, just like myself, I got a big ass chip on my shoulder when people mark me down for either my talent, my school, the system I was in, being a typical Nebraska running back. We just run straight ahead, and I was like, you know what? All right, I'm just gonna come in and show y'all what I'm made of and what type of back I am. I am an NFL back, and that's what he has to. That's what potentially, if he does fall out of the first round, that's what he can do, and use that as motivation to look forward towards his career.
The larger commentary here is probably like, what a circus we have figured out how to make this whole thing.
Everything.
And, I was just looking today, like the NFL draft starts on Thursday and it only is the first round. And then I think like the second and third round are on Friday. You just start going, why don't you have the first 3 rounds like they used to? And it's like, whoa, because we need to spread it out. We need to make it a bigger deal.
Right.
Why do these people do mock drafts? Oh, so we have something to talk about. Oh, why does Bob McGinn have to drop this information when, contextually it's kind of out of sorts? Well, because this is what they're getting paid for. I mean, it's one of those things where I don't even know if he's a bad guy. I think he's just doing his job.
But he's doing his job, but I think he knows better. I believe he knows better.
You tell me, what does he know? What does he know better? He knows that he's dropping information that he thinks is credible to get his name in the paper. That's literally his job.
True.
You see what I mean? Like it's such a weird thing because these players, you can, especially an NFL quarterback, you can fawn over them. They can become legendary. They can make a ton of money. They can get all, but the other side of it is you're going to have to deal. The side that they don't tell you about is you're going to have to deal with accusations, hearsay. You're going to have to deal with all these kind of situations that really you have very little to do with and have no control over. You just got to sit here and take it, on the chin sometimes and try to say the right thing in the moment when somebody presents this to you, probably as a surprise.
Yeah.
And this is the price you pay. And they go, oh, well, you get to be famous. It's like, no, I get to be famous because I'm better at my job than you are. That's why I'm famous. I'm not famous. Like this isn't, this, if we're going to really get into it, AG, what I always is amazing to me is at this stage in the game, the media is completely unnecessary. Like,
yes,
all of the arguments that we need the media as athletes to perpetuate our narrative or no, we don't. They don't need anybody because they have social media. They can create their own content. They can hire their own people.
Exactly.
They can find objective people to do or subjective people to do the job if they want. The people are going to still watch the NBA. They're going to still watch the NFL, whether or not this guy writes an article or not. So I think that the dynamic has changed. I'm sure the salaries have changed and things like that. The media, and you see how ESPN, for example, struggles with poor decisions they made hiring certain people in certain roles, and they have to kind of lag through these contracts now, and they've dumpster fired waves of different characters. But it's an interesting dynamic just as a larger commentary from when we were started, where you understood that there was a relationship that was required. And now, honestly, I just don't see it. I think guys can help themselves by being friendly with the media, certainly. But if you're going to tell me we can't do our job if you're not there, I disagree.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. You may, and then the last little comment too, saying basically, we could create our own narratives. I mean, you see players doing podcasts now. while they're playing. The Kelsey brothers, they had their. Draymond Green has his, where he goes and voices out his opinion, and all the laundry gets cleaned out with the player in control of the narrative, not ESPN, not Fox, not Fox, not NFL Network. And so that's where we are now. And so to your point, yes, I mean it is more in the players' hands, which something we didn't have at all. We didn't have that. Twitter, Facebook came towards like between 2008 and 2010. So in that 2 year space, when those social medias were created, and now you had NFL players chiming in, obviously they had to learn. And once the players figured it out, then they're like, oh, so that brought on a whole new dynamic of athlete. And so to Bob, to CJ, like I said, CJ, man, just is like duck off of Wilder's back. Bob, I believe as a professional, what you're doing is not fair, but part of it is you doing your job. The other part of it, you're old enough to know better, because you know what the can of your opening when you make this statement, basically, right here.
I saw something. I did a little research last week for a show, and I was looking at the cap numbers for offensive defensive spending across the league.
Right.
And I found something that was interesting. At least I thought it was interesting, that in the entire National Football League, there's only 4 teams that spend more on defense than offense.
Oh, gotcha.
So if you broke their cap up and you said, and that's for 2023. But listen to these teams now. I'm trying to understand if we can make anything of this.
Right.
The Dolphins, Jets, Bills, and Steelers are the only 4 teams that spend more. So the obvious thing is Dolphins, Jets, and Steelers are all on rookie contracts right now for their quarterback.
Yeah.
The Bills have Josh Allen, but the other 3 are on rookie contracts, so that would be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the Steelers have always been a proud defensive team. The Jets have one of the top 5 defenses in the National Football League. The Dolphins have an incredible defense as well. The Bills were kind of the outlier here, but if you look at all 4 of these teams, and you might say maybe 3 of the 4, because the Steelers, we don't know how they're going to be this year. They're going to have a second-year quarterback again.
Yeah,
get out of Pitt, but they've always been in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was going to be 50-50 because of the quarterback position, but I was surprised to see this. I was very surprised to see there was only 4, and I was also surprised that those 4 teams are actually pretty prominent teams in the National Football League right now.
Yeah. It's something when I saw this question, I looked it up, and I did my little homework too, and I was like, the first thing outside of that jumps out at me, obviously, is the playoff push or playoff picture. Which of these teams are playoff contenders? Some teams of the 4, Dolphins was right on the edge. Steelers.
Got the Patriots too. Sorry, the Patriots as well. But the Patriots doesn't surprise you at all.
Right.
Mac Jones, rookie quarterback. Bill Belichick's going to spend on defense.
Exactly. And so there are only 2 really teams that were, obviously Bills right into the playoffs with 13-3 record, but then the Dolphins just, kind of on the bubble. Jets they're going to be a team that obviously once the one piece gets in place through trade talks, we'll discuss that here in a little bit, then we'll know coming the season. But from last season, a team that we knew right away that their defense is what leads that team. Now they just need somebody to head the offensive side of the ball, so where they still have, continuity with both sides of the ball, basically.
Okay, so AG, I've made an error here. So I was on the wrong. So listen to this. These are the actual. So the Panthers only spend $66 million this year on offense, 99 on defense. That is a significant margin. They're rebuilding. Though they got problems. They're going to be on a rookie quarterback.
Right.
The Bucks don't have a quarterback. 72 versus 80. The Titans don't have. I mean, they got Tannehill, but they might not have a quarterback now. They might be using the cat of Liberty. They're 89 to 98. The Seahawks are 10 million under. They're Geno Smith. They just paid Geno Smith, but historically they're a defensive team. So there are a couple more here. The Colts are in shambles. They're 7 million difference. But I was looking at the wrong year, but still there's 8 teams, 8 or 10 teams, and I guess you're going to get I guess what makes sense is a lot of you talk about the Seahawks, the Panthers, the Bucs. Those are all defensive heavy teams. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, I think because a lot of those teams just lost quarterbacks, that flipped immediately. Maybe it flipped since last time I looked at this as far as where they reset. But it is. I don't spend a ton of time looking at the cap, but it was interesting kind of going through this and just seeing like the Packers, for example. They had all this money obviously wrapped up with a quarterback on offense, but it was like $10 million, $11 million for the running backs, $5 million for the wide receivers, $3 million, obviously rounding, $3 or $4 million for the tight ends. You go, okay, well this year, like they still have really made no splashes. And Jordan Love's coming in now going, okay, well, I got these 2 second-year guys going into wide receiver, but I really don't have a third guy yet. I don't have a tight end to build around. I have 2 running backs. I need a right tackle. Like what? They better hey, go ahead and open that checkbook, man. We got some time, we got some money to spend.
Yeah. You gotta like weigh down basically what's important. I mean, we've heard the old adage since we started playing football: offense wins games, defense wins championships. So it's interesting. I'm glad you put that in there because it shows us basically, obviously where teams are really focusing. Even though we hear all about the quarterback, we hear all about the offense and the wide receivers and the big plays, all that. When you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, take down all the skin and just get down to the brass knuckles, you got defense that's going to rule. And I'm an offensive player, and I agree with that. From the time I started playing football till now, defense is where you're going to get your wins at, because obviously you got players that are on the same page defensively, that know what they're doing in their technique and their roles. Then you have a good time. You got a good chance of winning a lot of games.
I always remember the Colts when they had Peyton Manning was healthy, and they were always perennial, AFC Championship game guys, and they had the number 1 defense, but it wasn't really. But what they had done, and I think this is such a great game plan, and it obviously depends on who you have the quarterback position, but they made a defense that was basically ball hawks, because they knew that they were going to score points, and they knew they were going to always be in a position where the opposing team had to throw the ball at the end of the game. Like, in other words, I remember playing that team so many times where we just went, they have no defensive line from a run defense perspective, right? They had Freeney, they had those guys, but they're pass rushers. Like you could run all day on that team.
And we did.
But you couldn't after a certain point, because Peyton Manning would score every time he got the football. I remember we went to Indianapolis one year, and this was when Peyton was coming up, and Brett was, had been 3-time MVP, and they were trying to show each other up.
38 or something like that.
Well, it was one of those deals where I think we went back and forth, touchdown for 3 possessions. We had to punt, and they just kept going, and literally the game was over. Yep. You know what I mean? We just couldn't make any adjustments, or we couldn't.
And to your point, after that game, Tony Judge came up to me. He said, we were going to let Brett do Brett. Let Brett throw touchdowns and all that. We were going to make sure we stopped you. We made sure that you didn't get in the end zone more than 1 time or 0 times. Because I think I had 24 carries for like 80 yards, but no touchdowns. And I think I have like 20 yards receiving. So he's like, the game plan was, he just stopped me in the middle of the field. He said, our game plan was to stop you. Make sure that we didn't get you. If you got going, then it was going to be a problem with the pass game and your run game going on. So basically us, the offensive line and myself, I was like, okay, that's it. That's coaching. I mean, you did it. You figure one thing out and I say in my head as a competitor, you got lucky this one. You got lucky this round.
I was looked at it kind of like, I remember in that game, or there's a microcosm of how they played, was I didn't think it was necessarily difficult. It wasn't like the running, or maybe we're talking about different games, but running the ball wasn't.
It was out there. It was in Indianapolis.
Was it different? Yeah. Maybe we're talking about the same game, but it wasn't like it was hard to run against them. It was you got to a point in the game, and it happened early. It happened second quarter, where all of a sudden you just can't run the ball anymore, because they're going to be up 14 points. They're going to be up 17. They're scoring every single time, and the numbers on defense, you said like 24 carries for 80 yards. I don't know what your stats were, but I remember Brett had 3 touchdowns to start the game, and then that was it, because just start now. Dwight Freeney's going now. Robert Mathis is going now. Bob Sanders is in the secondary, picking balls off, right? Yep. But they were perfectly built. It was one of those few teams that I went, that team is just built perfectly for like the offensive firepower they have. What they, I think they at the time they had Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne already. So they're so loaded, edge in the backfield, and then all of a sudden you go, Well, on the other side of the ball, it's not like they had these world beaters. They had some really good pass rushers,
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
didn't have world beaters. But
Same
they were the number one defense just because it's like they got you into the position they wanted. 16 out of 16 games almost. It seemed like they got to the second half and it was like, all right, pin your ears back, boys. We know that this other team's got to play catch up. That's exactly what happened to us.
Yeah, exactly. So you say good coaching, good players, knowing the play scheme and knowing the game plan going to each game.
When you think about the Packers now, going into this draft Thursday night,
yeah,
we need safety, we need tight ends, I think we need a right tackle. I think that's up for debate, but I think we need another good offensive lineman, we need an edge player.
Yeah.
There's a ton of people out there saying we're taking this Jackson Smith kid out of Ohio State, wide receiver first. And again, we've talked about it, bro. I love it. I mean, I love, hey, Jordan Love, sure, you get a first-round wide receiver. Aaron, I know you never got one. Jordan, Merry Christmas, first time off the board, first-round wide receiver. I guess is that a realistic? I mean, would Goody really do that? We've talked about this. There's so many real needs, and they've found success finding guys second, third, fourth round.
Correct.
Is there really a chance that because now you're saying Christian Watson's not your number one guy, right? If you bring in a first round receiver, that doesn't seem to me like you're happy with your number one guy anymore.
Right. And it's some good wide receivers coming out of college football because that's what college football is all about. It's about throwing the ball now. And it definitely would say in the action that Christian, you were our first rounder last year. And now this is who we're going after, receivers out of Ohio State, receivers out of Alabama. So now it's to the point of, in terms of value and what they need. Now, it's definitely not what they need, but like you mentioned, like you've been kind of gassing it up a little bit, how Goody would do this because this is something that was on the list of Aaron and never got requested. The request never got granted, basically. So
I say that tongue in cheek, right? Because like obviously the impetus here would be that you have a kid in Jordan Love who I don't think anybody thinks he's the next Aaron Rodgers. Certainly they haven't made him a poster child for being the next Aaron Rodgers. Sure. So he's going to need weapons. Now you have to start going, are the weapons at the Darnell Wright kid, the right tackle for Tennessee, who very well could be there. Are the weapons the Arizona or the Ohio State wide receiver? Is it one of maybe the 3 or 4 or 5 tight ends that a lot of people don't like to take tight ends in the first round, but if you were going to take a tight end in the first round, there's a couple guys here that you'd say this is probably worth taking. He'd be a cornerstone weapon. AG, bigger picture, put your GM hat on. What are the cornerstones of a team? If you're a GM and you're starting, if you just need guys, and you got 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, where are you going? You need everything.
I mean, everyone goes, so I got that list of what's priority number 1 and on down. I'm going offensive. I'm going offensive line. And then an edge rusher right away in the first round. If I got 2 first-round picks, is it going to be a flip up between best available of the tackles that's on my list and the best available or my edge rushers? That's the list. Because we just talked about defense spends, teams spend the most money on defense. So in one of those first round, if I have 2 first-round picks, it's going to basically flipper, it'll be the edge rusher goes first and that 15th pick, and then whatever that second pick comes, or if it's before that, is going to be a tackle or vice versa. So I'm going to go offensive line, defensive line, basically in my first 2 picks, and then wide receiver in my 3rd pick after that out of the 2nd, 3rd rounds. So that's a real easy decision.
If we had so generally, if you talk to a general manager, I said generally too much there, but if you talk to a general manager, they will say the 4 cornerstones of a draft are obviously quarterback, right? Yeah. But then they'll say corner, edge rusher, and tackle. And whether it's right or left tackle depends on how you run your offense, everything. So those are kind of the go-tos, right? Yeah. And then there's some extra. And then I think what usually happens here is there are some perceived extraordinary players at certain positions. Yeah. Where you maybe Jackson Smith is so much better than what you rank Darnell Wright, what you rank the edge, Will Anderson Jr.'s right now being looked at as he could be the most talented person on the board. So even though these teams desperately need quarterbacks, you talk about the Texans, there's people making those comments now, right? Where Will Anderson might get moved all the way up there because he's a mercurial talent that's been the best defensive player in college football for at least 2 years, if not 3.
Yeah.
So it's tough to say, right? I mean, it's always interesting though that it's very simple. Okay, I need a guy to throw the ball. Okay, well, I need a guy to play defense against the guy who throws the ball. Okay, I need a guy to sack the guy who throws the ball. Okay, I need a guy to protect the guy who's trying to sack the guy. And then you go, oh, it's literally that's how it was explained to me.
Yeah,
I had a general manager explain it to me like this is how we think. Here you go. Guy who throws it, guy who plays, defends it, guy who sacks him, guys who protects this guy from sacking him. That's it.
And now I see the problem with GMs. If they're thinking just like that too much, that's too much thinking. That is way too much thinking. It's real simple. We already know. We mentioned this on this show. The offense, the defensive line, that's where the game starts and ends, basically. If you have a really good offensive line, you got a really solid defensive line, that's where the game end and begin. Basically, if you got edge rushers, interior guys that can push the offensive line, the scrimmage, reset it, or if you have an offensive line, i.e. Philadelphia, that can then reset the offensive line or the line of scrimmage going the other way and can run the ball and then give your quarterback time to throw the ball, that starts then you going to get top-end quarterbacks, top-end receivers, top-end running backs. Eventually, some teams, and we know a few teams still use a fullback and blocking tight ends. That's where you could go start then picking up that offense where you obviously still, as we've seen today, going to spend less money than the defense. But you can get those key positions because sometimes in a situation, you only really need one receiver, one tight end, one quarterback, and one running back in every position. You don't need multiple of a whole bunch of guys to make a difference on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, but what would you – okay, so the other side of that would be Joe changed the entire franchise, first pick in the draft, right? LSU kid for best college football season ever. Easy first pick in the draft. That entire coaching staff was going to get fired going into that year, right? Yeah. I mean, it was. And their offensive line was garbage.
Yeah.
Right? They had a handful. They had Mixon. They had obviously brought in Jamar Chase. Their defense was not good the year before, but they've certainly played well recently. But Joe Burrow is, when I think of offensive line and Chad Clifton was Walter Jones, the best player I ever played with. Okay. And he was a first round pick. Your kid ran a 4.65 out of Florida State. I mean, come on, it's a joke, right?
Yeah.
But Chad Clifton was as talented a player that you're ever going to find along the offensive line, second round pick.
Oh yeah.
Right. Mike Flanagan, as good a center as you're going to find, third round pick. Marco, 3-time Pro Bowler. I think he was like 5th or 6th round pick. Tauscher.
Right.
My point is you can find these guys.
Yes.
If you have a good coach, and the Eagles is an easy one. Lane Johnson is the only first-round pick on that team, I think. And Lane's special. Yeah, on that offensive line. Right. Lane's special, but what's really special is they have a Kelsey. They have a Jason Kelsey is from a leadership standpoint. Mm-hmm. They have a team that believes in investing in building that offensive line. They have a great offensive line coach. Their system is very friendly for offensive linemen. So you can bring a lot of that in. Now the defensive line, I think you're spot on, man. Like you got that side of the ball, you just need talent.
Yeah.
Like that's not as much to me. That's a less developed player than the offensive line. Like you could take, in other words, the gap between where you are and where you can be for offensive line is actually, I think, is pretty severe. I don't know if it's as severe at defensive line.
Yeah.
I don't, maybe I'm wrong, but that's just how I've always perceived it.
Yeah. Because what happens on defensive line, they just get a guy that's either big or really fast off the ball. And then sometimes the defensive coaches don't even do anything beyond they just let them be. They don't work on mechanics where they get into hand fighting and leveraging and knowing if they are going to be a two-gapper, how to really play that two-gap. They just go with the talent because, okay, man, we got this big kid from so-and-so, or we got this big fast kid. He's off the ball. He comes off. We just put him on edge. He's going to get to the quarterback. They don't really think about the whole picture of building that kid out or building that player out. And usually it boils down to the player recognizing it in himself. I'm a 3 technique. yeah, I need to rush the ball. I need to stop the pass or start the run, but I need to work on my left rush, my left side rush, or my right side rush, or more hand play. That's when it boils down to the player, and that's where you see that discrepancy between better over time, over a career, offensive lineman figuring out, having the coaching to support them, and then having the ability. That's why they got drafted, and then Fro there being a great Hall of Fame, most likely Hall of Fame player, where the D line sometimes goes down the other way.
I wonder how many D linemen at the end of their career, because you make a great, like, the difference between running a 3-4, 4-3, are you a penetrator? Are you a two gapper? Are you a gap and a half guy? Okay, there are all these different things, and you can be successful in a number of them. You can be a great, Richard Seymour is a perfect example of a guy. If you're good enough, you're going to be a Hall of Famer regardless of what they put you in, because that's not a traditional, that 3-4 D tackle look. Ty Warren and him, like, those aren't positions. Those are positions where you're like, you're going to get enough stats to be a Hall of Famer, but he was an easy Hall of Famer, right? And there's a couple of guys out there like that. But I wonder how many guys, because it's almost the difference between being an option left tackle and an NFL left tackle. I mean, that's how different the techniques are. And I wonder how many guys at the end of their career look back and go, man, I wish I would have played for so-and-so just because this scheme didn't fit my profile. You know what I mean? I made it work and I had a good career, but I could have had 25 more sacks, and interesting. Be interesting stuff.
Yeah. It's coaching.
Aaron Rodgers talks are back on. Now, the Jets, basically, I think, depending on who you talk to, they're not going to give up the 13th pick. But that day 2, so Friday, before that starts, the expectation is the Jets are going to be a Super Bowl contender by Friday afternoon, and the Packers are going to be looking at having multiple second-round picks and maybe a third-round pick from the Jets. Now, maybe a 2 and a 3 gets it done. Who knows at this point, right? But when you start looking at it, bro, it's like, if I'm the Packers right now, and if I've told Jordan Love you're the guy, you're who we're going with. And we've talked about, okay, if they wait till June 1, they can spread the cap. Don't you want to start now and try to rebuild this? I mean, not rebuild, whatever you want to call it. I mean, Bakhtiari said it, rebuild the team.
Yeah.
But I feel like you got to get your stuff in gear by Friday to get that pick, right?
Man, I would have had stuff in gear a month ago. But
you understand you're not going to get the Jets best and final until right about now. Right.
Correct. What I would take care of anything else I could take care of without the Jets and Aaron dictating what I can and can't do as a GM. Because, me doing what I'm doing and what I'm, at the University of Nebraska now, but at Lakeland, sometimes I got to stop in a road where I was recruiting a player or waiting on funding to get the program started. That I'm like, you know what? Let me do stuff that I can do without waiting on that. So then everything else is done around that. And then boom, I get okay with getting this extra funding for this area. Or I find out from the player that he's definitely still interested in coming to my school. So I'm going to make myself busy until that time, till that bridge gets crossed. Other than that, you're not going to stop. I'm not going to just sit and wait and do this. I'm not going to put on my belt.
You feel like, and I think it's probably a lot of people feel like this, because they've really made like 2 moves, right? The special team safety, they've just done nothing. And I think a lot of people are going, well, we don't know what's going to happen with Aaron. And your point is, well, you already said Jordan's going to be the guy. So what the hell are you waiting on? Go put somebody in front of us that looks like they might be help.
Yeah. Yeah. Just look for things that, like I said, outside of who is not narrating everything else. Because Aaron dictating it, and obviously the Jets are holding on because of that. So I'm gonna go find. I got other stuff I can get done until that time and that moment is here.
Joe Douglas has to know at this point. Joe Douglas being the general manager for the New York Jets.
For the Jets. Yeah.
Joe Douglas has to know if Aaron Rodgers is planning on playing 1 year, 2 year, or more. He has to know by now. They've had that conversation. They know what their draft compensation is going to look like based on that. They're probably, and let's be honest, like if he plays this year and if they ever get his, backside over there and he's working with all these, all the wide receivers and the Breece Hall's coming back and whatnot there, you're probably thinking, hey, 2024's first round draft pick is going to be in the late 20s because we think we're going to be pretty damn good. Right. Yeah, so they're probably, and the Packers are probably looking at it that way. You just start. So maybe they give up the 2024 second round pick. They give it second and a second, and you start looking at it and you go, well, maybe that feels more like a third because you guys are going to be so hot. I don't know, but I agree with you. You wish that they had done anything during this offseason time that looked like they were putting Jordan in a position to be successful. Even if it was like, hey, we're hiring a quarterback guru. We're doing something or we're sending him out. We're sending him out to California. In California, he works out with this guy because we know Jordan Palmer, because we know Jordan Palmer's getting it done. And we put our stamp because we want everybody to know we're invested in this guy being the best version of himself for this team. But I go back to, bro, I just don't know with the amount of like swing. We talked about the over the cap numbers, the amount of swing that Aaron Rodgers' money will have this year, whether he's on the team, he's not, how he traded, retired, blah, blah, blah. Like, I just don't, maybe they just feel like we're scared to do something. We're scared to put ourselves in that situation, or it's not going to get passed by the league.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's any of those things. And I don't know with, in terms of Jordan, I know Aaron Jones, I saw something, I read something where he actually flew out. I guess they met out in California, him and Love.
Yeah, I think a lot of them were out there.
Yeah, so that's the players taking it on their own and said, hey, GM's not doing anything or the team's not doing anything. This is what we're going to do. And obviously that's the way they should do it. And it should be like this every year because that's the only way you get better and you get on the same page as players, working out together, doing little things together. Obviously, after the workout, you go hang out at a night, grab lunch, grab dinner, while you stay out there for that 1 or 2 weeks. And that's the glue that's going to help out everything else once we get past the draft and once we basically get the training camp. Between here, we got OTA starting up very soon too after this draft, and then on to the training camp. So that's that glue of the players connecting on their own is going to make it happen.
I think for you and I, with our backgrounds, and especially being in Green Bay and not having an off-season program, we understand how important it is to get with your guys, put that work in, take ownership of your career. That does so much more for you than just, staying up in going through the motions with your team necessarily. Yeah. When you think about this draft and, guys are coming in, and we're probably not going to draft a running back in the top couple of rounds, but let's say you look back at your career. If you could talk to you getting drafted
right
as a running back and you want to contribute that rookie year, what are the things on and off the field that you feel like, let's just maybe 3 or 4 things that are the most important insights you can give to a young kid who wants to get their stuff together so they can play now, they can contribute now, and we're going to assume they have the talent to do so.
Yeah, I would say one, obviously head in the playbook. Like you literally learn everything from your position and whatever they may put you in. If they you see the starter, and the starter sometimes is in the slot or outside, in a wide receiver position, learn that same stuff. Learn how to run those routes, work on your pass catching ability, and then obviously do all the mechanics, work on all the things that we do as running backs, running the ball, picking up the blitz, catching the ball out the backfield, and then talking to your old lineman, getting that conversation, but like, hey man, when we do a power, when we do a trap, when we do outside zone, when we do inside zone, what are you, like those conversations that we had, what are you thinking when I'm about to, I might bounce it because I see something that makes me bounce it, but what are you thinking as having I say learn the lay of the land. So that means get to know your teammates. 2, take care of your office, take care of your body. Your body is your office. So get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. You're in that weight room early. You're in their weight room late during the week, because if you're a rookie and you're drafted later rounds, you might not play a whole lot, but you will off offense, but you will play on special teams. So make sure that you're physically ready to go for all that, and don't try to balk at being on special teams. Eat it up, because that coach special teams coach is going to talk to your offensive coach. Hey, so-and-so, hey, he showed up in practice today. He's been in meetings asking questions, whatever. Do your part there. So
people don't have a good grasp on how important it is when it comes to cut time, how important the special teams input is. That usually sways the last 10, 15 positions on the team, whether or not that special teams coach is going to be able to use it. So go ahead.
If you're 4th round, 5th round, 6th and 7th, you better, that's your job.
Yeah.
Learn special teams, because they I don't know how it is today when they look at a later round draft pick for running backs, but I would take it. What the game is a passing game, so I take it. They're not putting much into you. I mean, the good coaches will. They will talk to you and teach you, coach you up, just like you the first for the starter. But other coaches out there, you never know what you're going to get going into a NFL coaching room and find out who's there to make you better. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, the routine thing for me is the number one. You got to get your house in order. You got,
Yep.
I mean, literally, you got to go. Hey, where are you going to live? How are you going to? What food are you going to get? Where you get all that? Like all of
Yep.
that stuff outside of the building stuff has got to be right. Like you just never find a guy who has maximizes his career that doesn't have that stuff taken care of, right? If you don't have that stuff taken care of, like outside the building, like getting into the building, the way your play style, everything is going to be a problem.
Yeah, and that stuff was just matter of fact for me. Like once I came out of here.
Well, I don't think it's matter of fact for most guys, though.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I didn't mention it. Like I didn't mention it. I was just thinking more football stuff. But yeah, that stuff is a matter of fact. You get to your city. I got to Seattle. I found out where the grocery store was. I found out where was the more, I say, healthier grocery store. Where they had better products and was organic or whatever. I found out where other, maybe there was a pro gym around town, because it's Seattle. You got the Supersonics, you got the Mariners, you have us. Maybe there's a gym locally where in the off season Seahawks go or the Supersonics go or something like that. You can hang out with them while they're in the gym, and then obviously be around like-minded individuals too. That's a possibility, especially in cities like Arizona, like Miami, or being in any Florida team. I mean, a lot of athletes stay in those cities and live in those states. That's something you want to think about.
Listen, all of that's important. I mean, if you're going to have four things, like you got to get your off the field stuff right. You have a routine. You're just trying to get to your routine. What's my routine look like?
Yeah.
You got to get in the playbook, like you said. I think it's probably the most important. I think more guys end up losing reps because they don't know what to do when their number's called than anything else in the league. I think they fail mentally more than they fail physically. Yeah. And then the other thing is, like, you're continually trying to build your confidence. And so you just have to figure out how you build your confidence. Do you need more? Do you need to work on your technique to build confidence? Is there something that you do that the person in front of you isn't able to? Do you need to accentuate that? Do you need to make sure that everybody understands exactly what your superpowers are and you can fill that niche role for the time being until you kind of become a more complete player? Like, you just have to put yourself in a position from, I think, a knowledge standpoint, knowing that they can trust you. That trust is probably the number one issue with offensive linemen, running backs, right? Can I trust you in blitz pickup, for example? Can I trust you're going to hit the right hole? And then those reps, you're going to miss a lot of reps. So you just have to be and I didn't know this at a young age, but you have to be a film junkie. If I could go back and tell my old self, because I think you and I were the same. Yeah, we're going to take care of our business. We're going to work hard. There's no lack of effort or time spent. But if I could tell myself one thing that paid off huge, sometimes I try to in every kid I work with now, or every young athlete, what we talk about maybe more than anything is you can learn so much from film study that it's a hidden advantage that just people don't take it, that do not take or that do take for granted. Excuse me.
Exactly. You gotta maximize that. And now they got so many. They make it so easy on them now. They got iPads. They can send it digitally through an email, through a text message, the game film, game breakdown, just the third down, end zone cut up, whatever. They could do all that.
I got a game for you today. Before we get some listener questions, we got somebody said, SDN 40 said DL is the sneaky need. They only have 4 on the team. Yeah, I guess that's true. But we kind of know that, like, rounds 3 through 6, they're going to pick up offensive linemen, defensive linemen, right? They'll pick up a couple guys. Maybe there'll be a trade that includes one. There'll be a street free agent later on. I don't know that they're going to pick up a first round because of Devontae Wyatt last year. I just don't think they're going to pick up a first round guy with the 15 pick in the draft. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think they're going to do that. Mark says that we need to find a future left tackle. That's true. Yep. I think Bakhtiari clarified his comments that he made when he was saying they and everything. He's putting his GM hat on, like everybody's jumping out overboard about what he thought about his future. But you probably do need to start looking at it. I think the great thing about a guy like Darnell Wright, I'll keep going back to him, the Tennessee right tackle. He's played both sides. He can play both sides. You can plug him in at right tackle right now. He'll play for 10 years. You can plug him right tackle right now and be your left tackle later on. Like I think he has the athleticism to do both. We have an edge need that we've talked about before. I don't know that after the first two guys off the board, which are going to be stand-up outside linebackers in Will Anderson and then the kid from Texas Tech, who might name, but Miles Murphy's the Clemson kid is not going to be that for you.
Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Wilson's going to be probably the second guy off the table. And I don't think they're going to be available for you. I don't know that the next guy, Miles Murphy, I think is better for my money, is better than Tyree Wilson, but he's going to be more of a hand in the ground guy. So he's probably not who you're looking for. I just don't know if you're going to get him from that pick. But yeah, you're going to look for some edge guys, certainly. And again, there's a lot of things that can happen with this trade. I keep going back to, we can pick up the Jameson kid from Florida State. They drafted first round from the Jets last year. He was our first guy off the board that they didn't take.
Right.
So I mean, there's options out there, but we always want offensive linemen, right? AG.
Yes.
If you're running, if you're a running back, if you're a left guard, man, the more offensive linemen you bring to the table, the happier we'll be. Certainly, 100%. I think what I do say this. I think the discrepancy, like Tauscher shows up, late round pick, Wisconsin kid. We're kind of going like, oh, this is almost like a gimmick, right? Because he's and he turns out to be amazing, and he's got a great 10 or 11 year career, however long he played there. He could be the governor right now if he wanted to.
Yeah,
I think that is not a one off, but I think that's extremely rare, and I really do think the difference now in kind of NFL ready talent or guys that are even going to be successful in the league is like that gap is just growing and growing and growing. I don't know how many 7th rounders you pick up today that you're like, I'm going to invest in this kid right now because I think he has a future, or even 6th, 5th rounders. It's really, really tough. Like Zach Tom last year, for him to have the athleticism that he had and not go higher is shocking to me.
Yeah.
I just think that's a mistake by draft guys, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was just about to say. That's where the scouting, the people looking at the athlete may not know. And then the athlete, too, for the later round picks, reason why there is, for the one reason that we're not seeing later round picks that then turn into Hall of Famers or Pro Bowler is because, as we know, some of these athletes mentally and physically are built different. They're not built like we were. They're looking for really easy ways in. They're looking for the handout, and it's like, no, we had to go take it. We had to work hard. We had to bust our butt. We had chips on our shoulders, and you don't see kids around with chips on their shoulders these days. Very few at certain positions. Just depends on their upbringing and understanding the process of when you put in hard work, you should get this, but usually it doesn't work out that way, kid. Then you got to find another way to get to the top.
Hey, I got to tell you something. So I forgot. So, I'm a Panthers guy too, right? So Matt Rule, the whole Matt Rule thing in Nebraska. So he had Matt Rule had a press conference I must have been yesterday or something like that. And
he had one up right after.
And the Carolina guys are just eating it up, man. They're just like, oh, thank God he's not there anymore. Because he was talking about how he had some 3.5. He's like, yeah, well, their attention span waivers after a 3.5 hour practice.
Yeah, I heard him say that.
What are you doing out there? Like, what are we in high school? Like in the 80s? Like 3.5? Okay.
I did hear that. I was like, okay.
There's a guy who flies in the face of science and goes, no, I'm going to prove a point.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
I know you can't say anything. That's why I'm just going to keep egging you on. Let's do some get off my line. AG, I got something for you today.
Okay.
This is a fill in the blank game. Okay. So I'm going to give you, and you haven't seen these, right?
No.
Okay. I'm going to give you some fill in the blanks and you got to fill it in. Now I'll give you, here's an easy one. It will be blank years before the video game industry pays their top players more than NFL quarterbacks. How many years before?
Ooh, wow. I would say,
because that industry's going pretty fast here.
Yeah, I would say max year 15.
15 years, and they're going to get paid. So that's probably $75 million a year, something like that.
Yeah, my over is 15 years. My under is 10.
Okay. Isn't that crazy to think about though?
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Jeez.
living in it, so
Yeah,
I'm learning it.
the ascendancy of that sport. Somebody hit me up this morning.
Yeah.
It was my buddy coach. He says, I said,
The
no,
one
you
that
need
goes to Overwatch?
no, this is I call him coach. I don't know why. His name is Ryan Clarich, but I call him coach.
Oh, Ryan.
And-
I know Ryan.
yeah, that's my guy.
We're same agent firm representatives.
So he's like my brother, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
called him this morning. I said, or yesterday, and I go, hey, I think you need to be my son's agent. We're making a joke, and he goes, what, for esports? I go, how did you even know about that? He's living in like Michigan. I don't even know he has electricity sometimes. All right, I got one for you. Here we go.
Okay.
The Packers front office can go blank themselves if they settle for anything less than a second and conditional first next season.
Go blank themselves?
They can go fill in the blank. They can go blank themselves. They can go blank themselves.
Oh, I say if they could go retire if they get that.
Okay.
That's what they could do.
I like it. I like that. No, that's a good. Yeah, you worked your way out of that one. Okay.
Yep.
You would pay blank amount of money to see a first rounder in Kansas City this weekend for the NFL draft. Fake handshake Goodell on stage this weekend. How much money would you pay to see a guy give him the?
Oh my God!
I would pay a significant amount of money.
It's almost priceless. I would love to see that. The most I would pay in person for me to be there, flight included, whatever, travel. Yep. I'll pay top end if it was. I'll say at the most $2,500.
Okay, I was gonna say if we started a slush fund for a kid, and said there was here's I don't know, we got up to $100,000, $200,000, but you have to come in with the I'm gonna give you it and go, see ya. I don't want anything to do with you. I'd pay a lot of money for that.
I'll pay a lot of I say I would like 25 if I had to be there in person. Actually, me, but for like a little giveaway thing, fundraiser. Oh yeah, let's go big. Let's go 6 figures on that.
Now we know that the actual draft boards and the media draft boards are completely different things. But the media draft boards, some of the media have suggested that the Texans will not take a quarterback at second pick. We talked about reasons why earlier. So Texan fans will blank the bed if they don't draft a quarterback with the second pick. Texans fans will blank the bed if they don't. What does blank mean?
Oh, that's easy. They're gonna crap the bed.
They're gonna crap the bed. That is right.
Crap the bed. That fan base they're trying to figure themselves out, but it's wrong. It's the reason why they're trying to figure themselves out is because the team has traditionally
ownership
has not figured themselves out over these years, ever since the existence of them in 2002 or whatever that was, 2005 years ago.
Last one for me. That the NFL makes millions of dollars off betting annually, yet they suspend 2 players. Now, they suspended 6 in total. They suspended 2 players for betting on college games simply because they were on team grounds. 2 Detroit Lions got suspended for 6 games for betting on a college game, which is legal, but they did it at the facility, which is a no-no. They are now suspended. Because they did that the NFL makes millions off betting, yet they suspend 2 players for betting on college games because they were on team grounds is completely blank.
How hypocritical.
Hypocritical is a great word. The NFL has a 3-1. This is anecdotal. The NFL has a 3-1 gambling ad to touchdown ratio during a game. In other words, if I see 3 touchdowns, I'm probably going to see 9 gambling ads per game. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a little thing you can comment on it. This is from an article. The situation with Williams, talking about the first round pick for the Lions, as well as teammate Stanley Berryhill has also received a 6-game suspension, is a bit more technical. They didn't bet on NFL games, but did place bets on college football while at the Lions facility. The NFL outlaws betting of any kind while at the team facility. Williams' agent released a statement noting that Williams would have been allowed to place these bets if he simply hadn't been at work. Really? Like, we've had people hit their spouses, run over other humans.
True.
This guy does nothing wrong. He just happens to hit
The
send
on the bet.
on the phone at a facility, and he's suspended for 6 games. You know how much money and future and all for 6 games? Give me a break.
Yes. That's at least maybe $2 million of pay. Well, it depends on the player. And I remember the year where I started. Me and my wife were watching the game, and I'm like, what's with all the damn Caesar ads? You got Caesar betting, you got DraftKings, you got all these different betting places, and I'm like, what in the hell is going on? And so when I saw it happening, I'm like, it really doesn't, unfortunately, surprise me because you're advertising it every day. So a young player may not read the fine print and doesn't realize that, I can't place this bet in the stadium, but I could go outside.
Why would you ever even think that would be? Why would you ever think that you couldn't hit send on your phone in the facility? It's just stupid. It's like no different than ordering a pizza. If it's not it's not illegal.
Exactly. So if you're betting, college game, okay, my team, I'm not there anymore. I'm here with the Texans, or I'm here with the Falcons, or whatever. And boom, let's go. I wouldn't even think, like I said, for a young player to not know that is no surprise because they, as a young person in general, they're spontaneous. It's like boom, boom, all right, and they got the phone. They're on their phone constantly. If you're, 30 and younger, you're on that phone. That phone is like an appendage attached to your hand. So,
AG, I lied. I have one more that I just thought of.
No problem. What's up?
Nebraska Cornhusker fans will wait for blank losses before turning on Matt Rule.
If we have more 5+ losses.
5 losses at Nebraska. Storied Nebraska football is going to endure 5 losses before turning on this guy?
They've been averaging almost 8 losses a year.
Oh, okay.
No bowl action. We're not winning 6 games in the last 5 years to go at least to
really?
The bowl. No.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
The bowl game, I think, was before Scott got here, unfortunately. So 2019 was the last. 2018 or 16 or 17 or 18 was our last bowl game.
That's a tough sport.
Hold on, let me look it up real quick. Let me see if I can find it. Nebraska.
While we're at it, thank you again, BetOnline AG, for sponsoring our show today. AG, you can find a mine at NebraskaKing.com.
Oh, bowl appearance.
What do you got?
Last one. Oh, wow. Last bowl appearance. It was 8 years ago. 9 years ago.
Well, listen, it's just a different frame. It's a different program.
2014. It was a Gator Bowl in 2014.
Well, that's too. I mean, most people weren't even alive then, AG.
For most of the you silly.
Right. Listen, you can find me at MikeWall68. AG, we're on Twitter and TikTok, Process Perform on Instagram. AG, where can they find you, man? Let's wrap this up.
Amon Green 30 on Twitter and Instagram. Amon Green's Gamers Lounge on TikTok and YouTube. Talking about video games, man.
Talking about video games. What day is that on? Remind us.
That's on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. live, but on the podcast ecosystem, wherever you download your podcast. Amon Green's Gamers Lounge.
Play. Think about the coaching.
Yes.
All right. We're out of here, guys. Thanks for watching.